Good morning and welcome to the Wichita City Council meeting. I'm Laura Gail Gamble with City Communications. Today is Tuesday, August 7th, 2018. So do you guys know the rules of the road? What about when it comes to bike lanes? You can test your knowledge by visiting safestreetsict.org and you can get plenty of tips there too. And now here's a look at what's coming up on today's City Council agenda. The Council will take public comments on the proposed city budget and the proposed capital improvement program. The Council will also discuss whether to defer the Delano Neighborhood Plan, and they'll also consider requests for bonds for Wesley Medical Center. For the latest City of Wichita news, we encourage you to visit wichita.gov. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, keep it right here on City 7 on Cox Cable Channel 7, and you can also check out our City of Wichita YouTube channel. And with that, I will turn things over to the Mayor and Council. Good morning.
Good morning, Laura Gail. Thank you, and welcome to all of you that have been able to make your way into these chambers this morning, and certainly welcome those that are watching from afar. Obviously, we have a full agenda and a busy day ahead of us, so we'll call the meeting to order, and we will have with us this morning Pastor Catherine Neely Burton of Grace Presbyterian Church that's going to lead us in an invocation, and then following that, the Pledge of Allegiance. We invite all of you to join us for both of those. Pastor, good to have you.
The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and all those who live in it. Please pray with me. Gracious God, by day and night, we pour out prayer to you. We cry for justice, yearning for what is right, longing for your peace. Come quickly to help us, O God. Keep us working and praying for the day when your justice will roll down like waters and your righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Replenish our strength and stir up our hope. Stir in your people today a desire to be part of the common good. May we get to the polls. Bless those who serve and pour out your wisdom on this city council. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Burton. Appreciate you being here. We have the minutes of the July 24th, 2018 meeting. Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, I would move that we approve those meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. We have one proclamation today. You're way ahead of me.
Oh.
No. I'm right.
Okay. I was thinking something. How you doing, sir? Yes, sir.
How are you?
Yes, sir. Some other people with me.
That's great. How are you? Good to have you this morning. So my wife's best friend in now Glass.
Okay.
Her sister-in-law is at the doctor. So any of you know Arthur Glass? So his two sisters are part of the city. Oh. Well, we have a proclamation today that we're going to give to these folks that is in recognition of the 1958 Dockham sit-in for their 60-year recognition. And I know most of you weren't here when that went on, but the manager can tell you all about it. So we have a proclamation from the City of Wichita. Whereas in 1958, the Youth Council of the Wichita branch of the NAACP, seeing the injustice in the practice of segregation in their city, discussed a plan to make a stand for change. And whereas their strength of will and purpose, coupled with a desire to stand up and be counted for doing something right despite the resistance of society at that time, and whereas under the leadership of the President, Ron Walters, Carol Parks Hahn, and others with their adult advisor, Rosie Hughes, organized a nonviolent sit-in at the Dockham Rexall drugstore in downtown Wichita to convince the establishment that blacks should be treated with the same respect and dignity as white patrons and be allowed to sit at the counter where all others were seated. And whereas these actions of these then teenage citizens of our community, beginning July 19th and ending on August 11th, 1958, when management said these students would be served, made an indelible mark on the civil rights history of not only our city, but the United States, as this led to the desegregation of all Rexall drugstore lunch counters in Wichita, the state of Kansas, and eventually the entire country. Whereas this action became part of the national civil rights movement, which resulted in the desegregation of all facilities in the nation. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jeff Longwell, Mayor of the city, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim August 11th as the 1958 Dockham Sit-In and 60-Year Recognition Day, and encourage all citizens to remember the contribution of these individuals in the fight for racial equality, and let it be a constant reminder for the youth of our country that a righteous cause has a path for success with dedication and will to pursue it. So, Larry?
Thank you, Mayor Longwell and City Council, and ladies and gentlemen here today. My name is Larry Burks. I'm the president of the Wichita branch of the NAACP. I have some very special people that are here with me this morning, and I'd like to get a chance to introduce them. First, I have Dr. and Mrs. Vesey. Dr. Vesey was one of those youth back in 1958 that was a part of the Dockham Sit-In. Next, I have Ms. Sandra Rankin, who is a member of our current branch of the NAACP. She is our education chair. And with us also, we have members of our youth council. Again, if you look at the history of this event, it was members of our youth council who were not much older than these people here that took that step, that took that bold step to do the things that had to be done. So they are in turn Antonio Rankin, who is our vice president, Aaliyah Rankin, who is the president, and Amaya Rankin, who is our secretary. And yeah, there is a bit of commonality there. All of them are Rankins, all right, and they're Sonia's great-grandchildren. So what I'd like to say is, again, I want to thank the city council and the mayor for acknowledging us with this proclamation. This was a very historic event, as you all know, for not only Wichita, but for the entire nation, because it led to the desegregation of all facilities across the board. And it gave emphasis to the fact that regardless of who you are, if there's a cause that's noble for you to pursue, you will have the courage to pursue it and you will be successful. And that's what happened here. On the 11th, we're going to have our complete celebration, which is going to take place in downtown Wichita at a Price Woodard Park and also at the Cheshire Lewis Reflection Square. So we invite you to come if you wish to come. It's going to be at 10 o'clock. It's going to be free. We're going to have a lot of presentations and some more historical recognition of this event. So I want to thank you all again at the city, the mayor, and again, all tribute to those who came before us that made a difference in our country. Thank you so very much.
Madam Clerk, you want to call the next item?
Robin Ulmer, City Pools, Police, and FOP.
Good morning, I'm Robin Ulmer, zip code 67207. It sounds to me like the Wichita Police Department is working toward making the department better. There's some additional training going on. The Citizens Review Board is working hard and making some good recommendations, and the WPD has gone about 222 days without killing any citizens. So far, so good. I still hope Justin Rapp is fired and never carries a gun again. He lacks judgment. I expect the city to pay Andrew Finch's family a large settlement to help his mom and his children. I hope to see more steps to prevent such a tragedy in the future. I understand during the Citizen Review Board, someone didn't understand why it was so important to release the officer's name quickly after the shooting. I personally have a few reasons. Protecting the name of the officer who killed Andrew Finch for so long showed a lack of honesty, integrity, and professionalism. It appeared as though WPD was embarrassed, trying to hide the facts and get their stories straight. I've also felt the citizens of Wichita needed his name to keep themselves safe. Justin Rapp was back on duty and working his part-time job at a Southside Walmart, still carrying a gun, only days after he killed an innocent, unarmed man. We need to be aware and treat him as armed and dangerous. Another reason to release the officer's name is deterrence. If an officer knows his name will be public if he screws up, he may look for alternate solutions instead of shooting or beating someone. It's up to Chief Ramsey to give these officers some training on alternatives. My final reason is simply fairness. If I hurt or kill someone, my name goes public within hours or days, even if I'm never arrested, tried, or convicted. I can live with that fact, and so can the police. My next concern is the FOP contract coming up toward the end of the year. We need a whole nother public meeting about that, and I hope you'll set one up. Many areas in that contract need to be looked at. My final area of concern is the budget. I need to leave soon, so I don't want to wait until it comes up on the agenda. I would like to understand the process better. Where does the city money come from? Has that revenue been cut from the state or property taxes or some other source? Are we handing too much money over to businesses and maybe nonprofits like the YMCA and not enough services like police, fire department, parks and recreation? Have you looked back over previous years' budgets to see where the imbalance is? If you don't give families a reason to stay in Wichita, they're going to leave. That's bad for business. Families need parks and pools and libraries. They also need a well-funded fire department and police department. And I also think a water park that you've already promised right beside 135 and 13th Street would be a fun destination. People will see it when they drive by and plan to come back with their kids. Maybe it could have some year-round pool or meeting facilities. Well, like I said, I need to get back to my voting location, so thank you for your time.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Sybil Strum, issues with the Wichita Police Department, Central Inspection and Housing Department.
Is Sybil Strum here this morning? Doesn't appear that she's with us. You want to go on to the next?
Monica Marks, Public Pools and Public Libraries.
I also can't stay very long because I was unable to get a parking spot. So I will probably miss the budget discussion. I signed up to talk when the budget came out because I live in District 1 and I want to see that water park put in there at 13th and I-35 for the reasons that Robin stated. It's a good location. It's near where I live. That area needs a pool. I just want to remind everybody that you said you would give money for that. The other amenities that you guys are discussing in the budget, libraries, I've heard you guys are going to keep those open. Clap golf area. I'm not a golfer, but my kids have learned how to play golf there the last 2 summers for $20. $20 gets kids a 2-hour lesson every Monday for the whole summer. And my kids have never not wanted to go. They're up early, ready to go. The program is filled, so I hope you guys figure out a way to keep the golf course, the pool, and the libraries. Also with Wichita Animal Shelter, I have a dog that's tracked through the animal control. Here in town, I have to pay for this dog every year. I get a bill. So there's all these expensive requirements that I have to meet to keep this certain dog that I have. So let's look at where's that money going and are we using that appropriately? Next question I have is about the internal police investigation. Mr. Manager, weren't you going to conduct a policy investigation, internal investigation to change WPD policies? When are we going to get the update on that? Can you email me that? When are we going to get the update on all of the policy issues that we've been coming in front of the council for a year about, namely transparency and the FOP contract? Now that the Citizen Review Board has brought up the transparency issue, seems to mostly be in agreement. We're not being nosy, whoever said that. We are wanting the names because not releasing the names actually appears to cause more problems with disinformation. I think there should be a number of hours that go by that the chief should be required to release the names in all critical instances within a number of hours, and it should not be left up to his discretion of whether or not to release the name. It should just be required that he release in a certain amount of time. I mean, I think we all know now that Justin Rapp was never in any danger from any of the citizens in Wichita. We just wanted him treated like any other person who killed somebody in town. And that's all I have today.
Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Alan Trineri, concerns over closure of public facilities and use of potable water to irrigate public facility land.
I came here from Colorado. I take care of my elderly mother. In 1996, I was standing before a huge crowd at the state capitol in Denver, Colorado. And I took a dollar bill out of my pocket and I held it up and I asked everybody, what is this? And they said, money. I said, well, what else is it? It's an instrument of debt. Every time you spend a dollar, a quarter goes somewhere. And it's not to the federal government. We'll leave it at that. That has left an indelible mark on me to have brought that up. I was reprimanded about that when I did it by the person that ran the rally. This issue with Andrew Finch and Justin Rapp and Lisa Finch, when Lisa spoke, as I was leaving, I stepped into the men's room down the hall, and there was a group of officers in there mocking her until they realized that I was standing there watching them mock her. You know, it was very upsetting because this lady had just had a terrible loss. And they were arty about it. We're looking at a real big problem with funding in this city. And one of my problems with funding is just exactly what is money. Most money these days is dots and dashes and computers. It doesn't represent anything real to me. It represents bookkeeping. I come from farming families. There's over 4 square miles of land in Oklahoma that's held by my family. And I would someday like to be able to go back to that land and grow industrial hemp. Oh, we got to spin our wheels and study whether or not it's possible to use this very profitable crop, which uses less water and produces vast myriads of different things. I eat hemp protein powder and shelled hemp seeds most of the time in my diet. I've cut out a lot of the, eating the meat and all this. I still eat meat because I don't like being vegan, and if I eat meat, getting cramps and constipation because my body can no longer digest meat. So I make it a point to always eat some quality meats. We have a problem with having money in this state. I would say that a lot of it is because we use prison slave labor to do jobs that people should be doing and getting paid for and paying taxes for doing these jobs. But instead, you arrest people for cannabis, throw them in jail, force them to go into rehabilitation and drug treatment, and all this stuff, putting a huge burden on them and their families. I've done a lot of canvassing lately, and it's very, very disconcerting when I have somebody look at me and go, liberal, like I'm some kind of dirty, evil, dastardly, bad thing, and we can't get along and get something done. One of the things that's most disturbing to me, absolutely most disturbing to me, is the standoff over aid to dependent families. When we had a multi-million-dollar grant approved to the federal government, and the county commission refused to take the money because of some libertarian, esoteric concept that we don't want to put this burden on our children in the future. So we'll put a burden on the children that are alive right now. Like putting the burden on the children down on the border because they came from the wrong side of the line, and for some reason that person is illegal. Nobody is illegal. We're all human beings. It's extremely upsetting to me. Along the same lines as one of my dearest friends on the face of this planet is a Vietnam veteran who survived the Battle of the La Drang Valley, where 2,000 Marines went in and got blown up by tens of thousands of VC and Chinese nationals. My stepfather was an air traffic controller in Saigon, and he ended up putting a shotgun in his mouth because the chew and his alcoholism, being a Coors employee, and he killed himself. And these things are legal. Whereas medical cannabis, which I know in my heart of hearts cures, I cured a veteran with prostate cancer, put his prostate cancer into remission, while my stepfather, my cousin, my mother-in-law, and I can go on and on and on about this, died miserable deaths.
Alan, you've
I come to my limit.
all of your 5 minutes.
I'm winding it up right now.
All right, 15 seconds.
And you call it illegal, okay?
Madam Clerk, next item.
Christopher Parasho opposes the opening of a business at Seneca University that is not reflective of the Delano neighborhood.
Good morning. I'm here regarding a restaurant being built in the Delano neighborhood at Seneca University, just north of Kellogg, called Tight Ends. The Tight Ends chain is similar to Hooters or Twin Peaks, but the outfits that the servers wear are a lot more revealing. If you look at the websites and Facebook pages of the existing franchise locations, you'll see they have things like lingerie night and competitions where the servers wear sexy outfits, which are sometimes so revealing that they actually have to cover certain body parts underneath the outfit in order not to expose themselves. Many people do not feel our neighborhood is the appropriate place for such an establishment. Delano has worked hard for many years to make itself into a family-friendly destination within the city of Wichita, and an establishment such as Tight Ends is contrary to those efforts. The plans for this location have changed frequently in the months since they were announced. First, it was supposed to be apartments. Then it became a mix of apartments with some retail storefronts to be leased out. At that time, the main retail establishment was to be a 24-hour restaurant called Huddle House, which serves breakfast foods. Now, the latest iteration is an all-retail development, which has tight ends as its primary business. Delano has building regulations which apply to any development within the neighborhood boundaries, such as parking between the building and the street. The developers requested variances for some of these regulations, and when those came before the Delano Advisory Committee, we were presented with architectural renderings of the building which showed tight ends as the primary establishment and Huddle House as a secondary business. Some of us feel there have been a bit of a bait and switch with this project. Some residents in the adjacent neighborhood have expressed concern that what they've been told was being built by representatives of the project doesn't match what was presented at Delano Advisory Committee. The developers behind the project are some of the ones behind the failed Shocker Knockers development elsewhere in Wichita, which was fought and stopped. So our feeling is that there's an effort to try and limit opposition with this project. The parking variance which they requested was granted after the developer's representative at the advisory council told the committee that if they didn't get what they wanted, the development wouldn't happen and the property would sit vacant for who knows how long. The city is investing a lot to revitalize Delano. The revitalization plan, which is later on in your agenda today, establishes what this community wants to become and lays out a path for future development and investment in the neighborhood. Some examples of the investment include $1 million bike path along the old rail corridor, which is currently starting the design phase. And of course, the replacement of Lawrence Dumont Stadium once the announcement is made as to whether or not we have a new team. In June, council members Blubaugh, Claycomb, and Vice Mayor Fry met with Delano United to discuss the status of the revitalization plan. During that meeting, the issues with tight ends were brought up. Following their advice, the members of the community and the Delano Clergy Association met with the developers in early July. We expressed our concerns to the developers and offered alternative ideas for that location, such as a community-focused grocery store to service the food desert of Delano, downtown, Riverside, Sunflower, and McCormick. Or something like a Dave & Buster's or Cheesecake Factory, which are some of the other popular chains which people in both Delano, Wichita, and even the greater metropolitan area have said they would all love to have, but the developers shot down those ideas. We also suggested ideas with regard to what the servers wear. Since the restaurant is also sports themed, we suggested having the servers wear something like umpire or referee uniforms to go along with it. That idea was shot down. By the end of the meeting, it was quite clear that the developers couldn't care less what anyone in the neighborhood thought or felt about their plan or how it might negatively affect the surrounding community. Because of the developers' indifference, a petition was started, which currently has almost 600 signatures and grows daily. The city has nudity ordinances, which if violated can result in various penalties such as fines or loss of license. Maybe the city needs to look into tightening up those penalties, or maybe look at the food service ordinances, which require maybe a minimum amount of clothing to be worn by people who work at restaurants, since the servers will be touching themselves to adjust their outfits so that they don't expose themselves. I hope we can all agree that the primary goal here is to make the city and Delano better and make it more attractive to both existing residents and visitors. I'd like to see the developers of this project and other projects in the future be more open and considerate of the needs and feelings of the communities they wish to build in. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda items 1 through 27.
Any items that need to be pulled for clarification? Cindy? Councilmember Claycomb.
Yes, Mayor. So I would like to ask that we take item number 217, which is the funding for Union Station 2 improvements, and that we move that to vote on after we approve the developers agreement, because we haven't approved the developer agreement yet.
Right.
So I'd like to move that that we vote on that after we approve the developer agreement.
So we need to, do we need a motion to move our agenda around then?
You can go ahead and make the motion to vote on all but this item on consent. I don't believe you need a motion to revisit it if you choose to vote on this item after the regular agenda.
Okay, so I move that
Well,
we
So
vote.
so we'll pull that item.
Thank you.
And it's listed down here as item 17?
Right, 217. Yes.
Right. But we will actually have to vote on it as an agenda item after our regular agenda. So we will have to put it back on our regular agenda.
That's correct.
All right. So any other items need to be pulled for discussion? With no other items, I move that we approve the consent agenda absent of item 17 that involves Union Station.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
DER 2017-3, Delano Neighborhood Plan.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Scott Knable with the Metropolitan Area Planning Department for the record. The recommended action for this item is to defer action until October 2nd. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Council members that obviously are, have the Delano in their council district, any issues at all? I would move that we take what staff just recommended and postpone the Delano plan.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Public hearing and issuance of industrial revenue bonds, Wesley Medical Center, LLC.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development for the record. The item before you today is a request for refunding of previously issued bonds for Wesley Medical Center. Wesley Medical Center is a regional acute medical center, which is a subsidiary of Healthcare Corporation of America. It is in the healthcare cluster of the Blueprint for Regional Economic Growth. Wesley's campus is located at the northeast corner of Central and Hillside at 550 North Hillside. In June of this year, the City Council approved a new $100 million letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds in several series over the next 7 years. As part of that letter of intent, it was contemplated that Wesley would want to refund a previously issued bond issue. In 2013, the city issued $35.5 million in bonds for improvements to the Women's and Children's Hospital on Wesley's campus. This refunding is an attempt to address two primary issues. The first is that Wesley would like to redeem the majority of its outstanding bonds. Wesley actually owns its bonds and therefore wants to redeem the majority of those outstanding bonds. It will leave a small amount of bonds outstanding for the balance of the property tax abatement period to continue to achieve that property tax abatement. The second item that Wesley wants to achieve is to restructure the 2013 bond issue. Our traditional IRB bond issues are done in a fashion whereby the bond financed property is ultimately deeded to the city, and the city holds that deed for the period that the bonds are outstanding. And then at the end of that period, the property is deeded back to the company. This is the mechanism through which the city is able to provide a property tax abatement for the company. More recent legislation has allowed for a change in how we do our bond structures to achieve that property tax abatement. And in the last few years, we have been doing what we call a lease-leaseback structure, whereby the company leases the property, bond financed property, to the city, and the city leases it back. And this is the mechanism through which the property is able to achieve a property tax abatement. The nice thing about the new structure is that the city is not required to take title to the property to provide for the property tax abatement. This is important in terms of the new letter of intent because under the existing bond structure, the 2013 bond structure, since the city owns the property, the city would require Wesley to provide a letter of credit in an amount equal to the amount that they intend to invest in the property in the case that they had a vendor or a subcontractor or contractor who was not paid and filed a lien against the property. As the property owner, the city would potentially be required to pay on any vendor that filed a lien against the property. So by restructuring the 2013 bond issue to a leaseback structure, the company gets the balance of the property tax abatement for the period that is still outstanding, but it takes the city out of ownership of the property, which means that Wesley will not be required to provide a letter of credit to the company, to the city for the $100 million of new improvements it is contemplating over the next 7 years. Therefore, it is the staff's recommendation that the City Council close the public hearing and place the bond ordinance on first reading and authorize the necessary signatures. Nicole Castleberry, who is the CFO for Wesley, is here and can speak to any issues regarding the company, and I am happy to stand for any questions as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Tim at this point? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Councilmember Johnson, are you ready to move forward?
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we close the public hearing, place the bond ordinance on first reading, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Resolution setting a public hearing for consideration of a project plan, tax increment financing, and first reading of an ordinance approving a development agreement for the Union Station Project Area 2 plan.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Mark Elder here with the Office of Economic Development. The item here before you is a two steps here. There's a request to set a public hearing for consideration of a TIF project plan for the second phase of Union Station, as well as a request for adoption of the development agreement related to this project. The Union Station Redevelopment District was originally established in 2014. The district plan was amended in 2015 to allow for the project to develop in separate phases. This project is the historic preservation of that Union Station buildings and those related structures. In 2018, earlier this year, the district plan was amended again to allow for it to occur in 3 phases rather than 2. It's part of one of the market-driven pieces of this project. This map before you is the map of the 3 phases for that district, with Douglas on the left side and Waterman on the right. The phase 2 plan will be the middle section with the diagonals. The first phase was along Douglas Avenue, which was completed earlier and now is active. This map here before you does show where the project area 2 would be. It includes both the Union Station terminal as well as the Express building, which is the middle one, and includes construction of a second 30,000 square feet on top of that Express building, as well as redoing the parking, the paving, planches around that. Here are some renderings of what the development will look like. This is kind of looking from the southeast, looking northwest at the Express building. Another example of what the redevelopment would look like with, again, the planters. You can see the second story up there, as well as brick pavers and brick sidewalks. And there's just kind of even a closer image of how that redevelopment will look. The rehabilitation will be for approximately 77,000 square feet of building, as well as the additional 30,000 on top of that Express building. The developer's investment will be approximately $31 million. It does include, as this rendering showed, the repaving of parking, including the brick pavers, sidewalk pavers, as well as those new planters and landscaping. Again, the developer's investment is approximately $31 million. The portion of TIF would be close to $3 million between the demolition and the side improvements. the other kind of utility expenses, as well as soft costs or any kind of contingency within that budget. The other half of the item this morning would be the development agreement. The development agreement is being asked to be adopted today in order to allow the developer to begin work on the mead utility improvements. All the mead utility improvements will be privately constructed. The rest of the improvements in the development will be both privately constructed and privately funded. The TIF project plan will also include just pay-as-you-go financing, so the city will not be issuing debt for those TIF expenses. The developer will be paying for those and then be reimbursed as those TIF revenues are generated. The developer will also be providing a parking easement for approximately 283 parking spaces that would be available free to the public on nights and weekends. The developer will have milestones, including starting construction of the project no later than a month after execution of the agreement and being substantially complete with phase 2 by December 31st of 2020. As for the city's participation in this project, it will include that 10-year parking easement for those 283 spaces for $200,000, as well as the city will be funding the city infrastructure, the Mead Corridor, which will be constructed privately by the developer, but it still is city utilities, as well as that pay-as-you-go TIF reimbursement for those TIF expenses of approximately $3 million. So the request before you today is both the adopting that resolution that would set September 11th to actually have a public hearing for the TIF project plan. At that time is when there will be the public comments on the development of that project plan. And then the other part of that today would be the ordinance adopting the development agreement today to allow for the developer to begin the private construction of the mead utility. Any of the TIF related expenses would not be eligible until following the adoption of the TIF project plan. And so, the developer can't begin those, and they take the risk that whether or not that project plan is adopted. I also just spoke with Lon. If you chose to, I believe you could also bring that consent item up to approve at the same time as these items if you wish to consider it all together. And there are also Chad Stafford from the development team is here for any questions as well, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions at this point? Seeing none, we will go out to the public. Anyone in the audience like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. And again, I think Councilmember Claycomb and Councilmember Johnson and staff have been sitting down with the developer working out the language on this particular item. And did I hear you say we can just combine the consent agenda item and roll it into this motion?
Yes, that would be acceptable.
All right. So I will hand it over at this stage to Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to make sure I get that language correct, would I add in just consent item number 17?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I move to adopt the resolution setting a public hearing on September 11, 2018 for consideration of the Union Station Project Area 2 plan, approve the ordinance on first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and item 17 from consent.
And I will second that. And I appreciate the presentation. I think the renderings look fantastic. Again, it's an opportunity for us to see investment made in the heart of our city. And so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. And motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Submission of electronic plans.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good morning. Chris Labram, MABCD, as stated, discussing electronic submission of building plans for code review. So specific to that, MABCD does review the building plans for code compliance. That includes building code and fire code prior to a building permit, and this is for commercial projects only. So this only impacts the commercial process. The fee for that review is 60% of the associated building permit fee. The department purchased the capability to do an electronic submission and review of plans in early 2016. We did invest with
software, servers, training, everything required to have that full capability, about $450,000 in that capability. In the past year, we've worked diligently to solidify and streamline the e-plan process and prepare to eliminate the handling of paper in our department, or in this part of our function, I should say. Important to point out that plan review remains a plan review. Whether a reviewer is looking at a large computer screen or TV or at a piece of paper, the review process stays about the same. But we do see incredible gains in the input, transportation, filing, storage, of course, of the plans, and we'll see some of that on the next slide. Another thing this does for us is facilitate some other potential processes about how, when, and whose plans may be reviewed, and what we might be able to do with some things there in the future. So the goal of this was to implement electronic submission and review as our sole input media. As stated, when you look at our process, you can see there, this happens to be, these pictures were taken when the Cargill office building was being reviewed. So it was one large set of plans in there, but on a given day, this is our plan review office. So you do see that there's a great deal of paper going back and forth to include FedEx shipping, the storage, et cetera, associated with that. The picture on the right is one of 3 storage areas that we have in the Ronald Reagan building that we plan to eventually eliminate through this action. Those with electronic files that we use now, we do use the on-base filing system. We're in the process of putting all of this paper into electronic file. Of course, as we continue to take more, that's a little bit of becomes a self-defeating process. So to that end, we did go out. We've had a few meetings with our stakeholders to solicit input. A lot of that was what we needed to do to the system to make it functional to the level they required. So we've had a few meetings with them. We've had several training sessions to include some of our IT folks going out to local businesses to show them on their own system how to make that input work. We plan to continue that. We plan to hold several more meetings between now and the end of the year to work with them and continue to hone this process. Through all of this, we've seen our usage come up to about 60%. We do still have some submitting paper until the end, if you will. And on that note, we do have support of this. That becomes an interesting question in this. There are some who, if we did not implement this, would still be happy to turn paper in. So I don't want to overstate that. But we do have support in the community. Overall, obviously architects and engineers do all of their drawings originally on the computer anyway, so it just becomes a matter of learning a new process. One question arises as to the business's options if they just do not want to learn our software and want to use paper. Local print shops have and will learn our process, and we'll submit those for them. Currently, some of our architects don't print the drawings themselves. They mail them over to a print shop who prints them and brings them to us. That process would just be somewhat reversed, and they would submit them on our electronic system, similar to bringing us paper now. It is a web-based system, so there is no purchase of software. Any systems that we're aware of and all the companies we've worked with so far, if the system supports their CAD program, the drawings they use, then it easily supports our software. There are numerous file types that we'll accept. PDF is the preferred version, but there are more than 100 different types of files that can be submitted. So specific to our ordinance, it does amend the table C, which is our fee table. It puts a note with the plan submission fee that states that we will require electronic submission of all of our plans. It implements that date, January 1st of 2019. It also implements a 10% upcharge for the paper handling, since we are shifting our resources towards the electronic, and we'll obviously have to get those paper files into our filing and review system at that point. It does, as you would expect, define that we maintain control of the operating system, that we have the right to upgrade the system, change the vendor if we have an economic gain in doing that, etc. And of note, to note, the BOCC did adopt this in resolution form on July 18th. So with that, it is recommended that the City Council place on first reading the ordinance amending Table C of the Unified Building and Trade Code with the adoption of the proposed ordinance and authorize the next necessary signatures. And I will gladly stand for questions.
Any questions? Have you guys tried to calculate what you believe the savings will be if we get everything turned over to electronic plans, not only with us trying to digitize the plans, but should make a difference, obviously, in field services and potentially how we review in the field?
Yes, sir, and I don't have exact numbers, but if you look at plans, there are plans that are 400 pages, for example, and $7.50 to $10 or $12 a page, depending on size. So specific to us, there will be a cost savings.
Okay, thank you. No other questions? Anyone in the audience like to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Any further discussion? Just, and I think I heard that, certainly it's in here, that the county has adopted this same policy on July 18th of 2018. And so this really, obviously it's a joint department with the county, and certainly makes sense to move in the direction of efficiencies and understanding all of that. I would move that we take the staff recommended action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
2019 annual operating budget and 2018-2027 capital improvement program.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. This is your first public hearing on the 2019 annual operating budget and also on the 2018-2027 capital improvement plan. Just a reminder of the context for the development of our budget. Obviously, try to stay in line with our mission and vision, as well as to present to you a sustainable business plan, not just for 2019, but for the future. Citizen engagement and elected official engagement was a significant part of the preparation of this budget. We had a very successful social media town hall, one that helped us actually shape some of the recommendations in the budget and to reverse direction on some items that were discussed and where there were some adverse concerns expressed by the public at the time. We had 3 council retreats and also a workshop on the budget. We presented to the district advisory boards and, of course, have received feedback from social media on a regular basis. Proposed the budget on July 17th, and as I said, this is the first of your 2 official public hearings. Just a reminder, our total budget represents $600 million, almost $601 million worth of expenditures. This has, these 2 pie charts show a breakdown of the revenues as well as the expenditures for the entire budget. I'm going to focus the rest of my comments regarding the budget on the general fund, which, if approved, would represent expenditures of about $244 million. This chart shows the revenue sources for the general fund. Property tax represents 35% of our total general fund revenues. 2 pie charts here regarding our expenditures for the general fund. The first broken down by category. If you take our basic services of fire, police, and public works, they represent, if I remember, about 75% of our total budget. If we also take in parks, which includes a number of maintenance items or expenditures for our park system, that takes us up to about over 81%, if I remember correctly. So again, a significant amount of money going into a limited number of items. If you look on the right, this is it's broken down by category of expenditure, and you'll see that 73% of our total expenditures go to salaries and benefits. A reminder that for the 25th year, we will remain flat with our mill levy rate at $32.66 or 67 cents. What I'm going to do now is go over the original recommendations that were shared with you in July, and then after that I'm going to talk about modifications based on another round of feedback after the release of those recommendations. The budget, first of all, provides for 32 new positions, and that would remain untouched. That's $3.2 million in new expenditures in actually starting later this year and fully implemented in 2019. Also had recommended a shifting of expenditures, actually an increase in expenditures of $2 million annually for our pavement maintenance program, and also a strategic realignment in our staffing and equipment deployment in the fire department. Had proposed the closing of the Linwood branch in 2019 and the closing of the Evergreen branch library in 2020. Had also talked about reducing our funding for city arts starting in 2019 and holding our expenditures for cultural grants and institutions in 2019 and 2020. Talked about a change in our funding for economic development and coordinating all of our economic development initiatives under the umbrella of the Greater Wichita Partnership. And then because of declining revenues and increasing expenditures, the closing of Clapp Golf Course in order to balance the budget for the golf system. Talked about changing the model for school resource officers, developing new strategies in order to strengthen the role of the SROs in mentoring, in teaching, and as well as helping with the restorative justice initiative at the school district. Also talked about changing the way that the animal shelter is operated and bringing in outside parties to help with the management of that facility, and then moving Cowtown towards a model that's more similar to what we use for the Wichita Art Museum, and that was one where the board would have more control over the staffing for the facility. As I said, those were the original recommendations. After that time, there was significant input from the community. Mayor and council received numerous comments as well as staff, and as a result of that, I'm offering to you an alternative proposal that has been crafted primarily by the mayor and some council members in response to the feedback that was received after July 17th. These are the alternative recommendations. They include retaining the branch libraries of Linwood and Evergreen, and then relying on the results from the study that was done 2 years ago on the branch libraries to become more focused in the initiatives that are offered at these libraries. To work with the cultural, or with the cultural arts community in coming up with a refined model for city arts. Keeping Clapp Golf Course open through the completion of the master plan process for that facility or for that land. To assist in the 2019 transition of funding the new model for economic development, we would add another $50,000. So that would be $250,000 in additional funding that would go in 2019 to the Greater Wichita Partnership. And then in order to help us through the planning process as we look at new initiatives for 2020, we have $150,000 of allocated funds there. And then we also have we would unfreeze the allocations to the cultural institutions in 2020.
Bob, hold that slide there for a second.
Yes.
So you're showing roughly $1 million worth of cost right there.
Right.
But when you go back up to Clapp, we don't expect to lose $461,000 at Clapp next year. There will be some revenue offsets. And so it won't be $1 million hit to the 2019 budget if you offset the Clapp Golf Course with the revenues that it brings in.
Based on the golf report that was shared with the golf committee, the park board, and the council, this actually represents what our system losses would be through 2018 and halfway through 2019. So this is the net losses for the system if Clapp were to remain open until the beginning of the summer of 19.
So you're saying all of the golf courses are losing money?
The system is losing money, yes. And Clapp is the golf course that is contributing the greatest to that deficit.
So we ought to refine that then and not put $461,000 onus on Clapp.
We can reword that if you'd like. That's the consequence of the Clapp being open through June of next year.
All right.
To offset that $1 million referenced by the mayor just now, the recommendation is to not fully fund the increase that had been anticipated for street maintenance in 2019. In other words, still increase expenditures, do so by $1 million instead of $2 million in 2019. What I wanted to do is show you the impact that your increased expenditures have had on the system since 2009, when we consciously started to increase the allocations, went from $4 million in 2009 to what would be now $9 million in 2019. This just graphically shows the expenditures for 3 years. But this is, I've got two charts here that I think are of great interest. This talks about the change in the asset value for our street system really just since 2012. The bottom line shows what our system was doing and what it have continued to do in terms of the value of our streets, meaning the condition of our streets actually contributing to a loss in value if we'd stayed with what was called the old pavement condition index system and just repaired streets as they reached the end of their useful life. Obviously, if you remember when we talked about the model, we were never able to get ahead. After changing the model and increasing significantly the amount of money that you've designated to street maintenance, we now have seen an uptick in our asset value, and you'll see that we're basically are projecting a flattening out based on the budgeted levels through 2024. If we're able to increase those, we'd even see more of a growth in our asset value. The other concept that we talked about when we brought the model to you was the concept of remaining acceptable service life, and you'll notice that you've made a significant difference in our remaining service life through the expenditures that you've made through 2018.
Bob, do either one of those graphs take into account the money that we just put in with the Hyatt proceeds?
Yes, in fact, I think if you look at the big jump actually between 16 and 17, I think that's where we allocated all of it. Now it was spread over a period of time, but we showed the full 10 million there.
Thank you.
Mayor, that's all the comments I have on the budget. I now have comments on the CIP in case, I assume you want to take all public comment at one time.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go. Are there any questions at this point? All right.
This will be a repeat from what I shared in July. We're talking about a $1.8 billion 10-year capital improvement program funded with 7.5 mils out of the property tax. Also, we use local sales tax to fund primarily our arterial and major street improvements. Council introduced a new model this year on establishing priorities, and this document reflects the results of that model. Again, this is the background for the preparation of the document. It conforms to all the benchmarks that have been adopted by the council and are ratified every year in the adoption of the CIP. This is the pie chart that shows where our revenue is generated to support the CIP. You'll notice a significant portion comes from special assessments and from our utilities. $340 million in property tax supports the portion that's called GEO at large. Here's where our money is spent. Again, significant amount goes to the utilities, and then arterial streets, another major expenditure category. This is the one benchmark that we look at the closest. We do that because it's the one that we came the closest to meeting or exceeding in the past through the council's fiscal policies and adaptations in the CIP. We've been able to stay under that benchmark and project that we will continue to do that through the life of the document. CIP includes $97 million for public safety projects, another $34 million for downtown projects. Street maintenance would still represent a significant amount, $78 million. And then we have aquatics improvements and bike paths, which represent some of our significant quality of life improvements. Mayor, that's all I have on the CIP. So I'll be glad to answer any questions in either the operating budget or the capital improvement program.
So specifically, as we drill down on the CIP, we have obviously some monies earmarked for things like new fire stations, new fire equipment. We've talked about potentially taking a look at a different way to purchase fire equipment and potentially look at buying frame-up restoration instead of new and comparing that. We don't need to make that a policy today. We're just approving the overall budget, but we still have that option.
Right. Again, this represents a planning document, and you also instructed about 3 years ago that this document be updated every year, so that as we go ahead with projects like that and analysis like that, we can then use that feedback to change the document or modify the recommendations the following year.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Anyone like to address the council on this agenda item? I ask you to state your name and address, and we'll give you 5 minutes.
Sybil Strom, 3000 West Douglas, apartment 412. Here we go. You want taxpayers to pay for these businesses. We don't have the money. If you want to pay for it, that's fine. Take it out of your own pockets. The Clamp Golf Course should be able to pay for their own. Now the animal shelter, I've been out there. It's disgusting. They don't take care of those dogs and cats. Now that should be their problem, not the taxpayers. Every time I come here, you want to flip the bill on the taxpayers. It's not our problem. We go fix our houses up, we pay for it. We go get insurance, we pay for it. Stop doing that. Stop taking money from the taxpayers. It's not yours, it's ours. You know what? We can vote you out.
Mayor and City Council. My name is Hoyt Hillman. It's 3705 East Mount Vernon. I come to you today to speak in behalf of the president of Grandview Heights and the Metal Arc Neighborhood Association, who could not be here today. Our neighborhoods together total 1,600 homes around Clapp Park and just down the street from Linwood Park. Our president and about 75 members of the neighborhood, along with about 50 golfers, were present on Friday afternoon of July 6th to voice their clear opposition to the immediate closing of Clapp, as well as the Linwood Library, Linwood Swimming Pool, Boston Swimming Pool, and the Colvin Center. District 3 has felt like it was under attack, and we responded for more than 3 hours of public hearings. We do appreciate the short reprieve the council is giving us now, and in a spirit of cooperation, the president has sent only a few representatives to come here today to speak. Things our neighborhood expects in the future. You can see this in bold type. A 30-day prior notification through the District 3 Advisory Board of all parks or city council meetings with public hearings to discuss any public amenities to be removed or added to District 3. District 3 residents prefer to take an active role in their future and look forward to working with the council to keep Linwood Library open and keeping all 96 acres of Clapp's final master plan as a green space, no matter how it is utilized. The council knows well it's been long established that older, higher density neighborhoods like District 3 help generate the greatest income for the city of Wichita. Median income families with kids need affordable homes, nearby parks, pools, and libraries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll make it quick. My impressions of one of the greatest expenses for the golf courses is the fact that they're using potable water to water these facilities. Why can't the city of Wichita develop a water reclamation system where all public facilities are watered with reclaimed water rather than using very expensive potable water, which is intended for human consumption? In my opinion, it's ridiculous to water a golf course with water that has been run through the sanitation department. It's unnecessary and it's very expensive, and it's sending good money after, it just baffles me. And that's the statement I wanted to make concerning the budget for the golf courses, but also for parks, just in general. It's just to spend money to purchase water that is intended for human consumption to water golf courses and parks is insane. I'm sorry, it's very frustrating to me. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to address the council in this fashion. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager. My name's Rebecca Hoyer. I live at 4433 East First Street, and I'm City Arts. I have shown in the City Arts galleries many times over the last 18 years, and I and my fellow artists who also show there, I wanted to say thank you for funding City Arts in 2019. I'm also here today because you have said that the funding is for 1 year, and that then the budget would be looked at again. I'm afraid that there will again be drastic cuts to the budget. I ask, why did the city manager think it would be okay to shut down the gallery side of City Arts? I don't know, because nobody has really told us. But I've heard 3 different rumors, and they make me think that you all don't know City Arts. Rumor 1 was that the council thought no one would care if the budget was cut. I think you have seen and heard that this is not the case. Kurt Klontz got on the radio at KMUW. Richard Krausen did a political cartoon. Rodney Miller wrote a letter to the editor. Denise Irwin spoke here at the last council meeting. She and I decided to see what the people were feeling. On Final Friday in July, in about 2 hours, we and a few volunteers collected close to 1,000 signatures asking that the City Arts remain funded. People would come up and say, oh, yeah, I want to sign that. Did you know that over 1,100 people went to City Arts for Final Friday, even though July is usually a slow month? We artists here have come here in our shirts to say that we care about the galleries. We did not see you out for the show, so we know you missed the excitement. Go next month and see how it is the linchpin of Final Friday, showing 4 Wichita area artists every month. If you don't go, you don't know City Arts. Rumor 2 was that the budget would get rid of the 5 people running the gallery and boutique. Did you look at the City Arts website? The jobs titles have only 1 person as artistic director of the gallery. The other 4 staff work for the whole of City Arts and are not separated into educational and gallery staff. Did you talk to the staff before you proposed cuts? Did you know that the sales monies from the gallery does not stay with City Arts but goes to the Arts Council? How then could the galleries get to the goal of 50% recovery? It shows that you do not know City Arts. Rumor 3 was that the Arts Council would take over the galleries and run them as a nonprofit. Did you even ask the Arts Council if that was possible? When I went to the Arts Council meeting last month, they seemed surprised and unwilling to do that. They understand the work that would entail, but you seem not to, and so do not know City Arts. So, City Arts has been funded for a year. I and the arts community ask that during this year you look at City Arts. On the Wichita government website, City Arts is listed as a recreation and not as an attraction like the Art Museum. Why do you not see it as a tourist destination? Why would you get rid of this attraction in the middle of Old Town when you are building up apartments and hotels there? Don't you want places for people to go? Don't you want brochures at the hotel showing that off? The galleries are unique in that they show Wichita artists They are open almost every day and show that Wichita has a thriving, working, entrepreneurial arts community, exactly the type of people that the Chung Report advises that Wichita needs more of. So we ask that you work with transparency and with the staff of City Arts to figure out what City Arts is, what its future is, and what its place in Wichita is. Get to know City Arts. Thank you.
Thank you. So, please, folks, I don't mind the clapping, all right, but let's not clap for 10 minutes, all right? And let me set the record straight. Denise, you and I talked also. You all missed it in the slide that the city manager just showed up there on the screen when I referenced the $461,000 for CLAP. He has budgeted for City Arts for 2020 also. So I don't know how you missed that. It was just up there just a few minutes ago, but I just want to set the record straight. He has budgeted for City Arts in 2020 also. Did I miss that? It was on the slide. All right. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Parker, and I'm here to advocate for maintenance of CLAP as a golf course on an ongoing basis. I retired from the VA hospital last year ago, so let me be clear, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not the VA. However, the prior 27 years I worked at the VA here, and I was frequently involved in recruiting physicians, dentists, and other healthcare professionals to move to Wichita. One of the pitches I would routinely make was that Wichita was a great place to move to because we have extensive, fine public facilities. It's a family-oriented community. And this pitch frequently resonated with potential recruits and their spouses. One of the things I would particularly hit on once I found out someone was a golfer was that, hey, you can come to Wichita, you don't have to join a country club to play golf. We have a fine set of city golf courses, come here. And of course the VA is close to CLAP, so I would drive them by CLAP, and as you probably know, CLAP looks very beautiful from the street. It was useful. But beyond CLAP, you talk about pools, libraries, parks, the zoo, Botanica, etc. Having a broad and strong set of public amenities really helps bring people to the community. And we've heard talk in this meeting about various aspects of financial support for bringing economic development in. I think it also helps bring economic development in if you make the community a place that people want to move to, and then especially if you make it a community that people want to stay in. I think we do have something of a problem with young people wanting to leave Wichita. And I don't think you make your community a place people want to stay by closing public facilities. On a more specific level, just about the CLAP golf course, it is unique among the city golf courses, and it is the shortest course. Okay, so it's a very good course for senior citizens to play, for youth to learn at, as was remarked on earlier, for anyone who's not a long ball hitter. Now that I'm older, I hit the ball not as far myself. It probably will never be the favored course of someone in the prime of life who's very proud of how far they can hit the ball, but it can be the favored course for a strong segment of our community, especially, again, senior citizens, youth, anyone who doesn't hit the ball very far. It's also a very beautiful course. Once you lose an asset like that, and you lose an asset like that in a fairly developed area, what are the odds of ever regaining that in the future? I think they're pretty poor. So I would like to see a very strong effort made to grow the use of the golf course. For example, it's well suited for senior golfers, perhaps steeper discounts for senior golfers to play there to try to increase utilization of the course and increase overall revenues through volume. I would like to see all those options explored before we look at closing another asset and having people who are thinking about moving here, Googling Wichita, and finding headlines about closing of public facilities. It just doesn't create the image of a progressive, vibrant community that I believe we want for economic development. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Trish Heilman. I live at 139 South Fountain. Thank you for hearing us today, and thank you for the hard work that you do in leading our city. It really is appreciated, and we know that you're not here for the money. I wanted to just speak to the overall 10,000 feet up sort of government stuff. We all appreciate that 75% of your budget is fire and police and roads. Maybe it's 80-some% of the budget. We appreciate that that's what you do as government. It's not sexy. And we get that and we appreciate that. We want that to keep going. Please make sure that we're doing those core things well, that we're staffing fire to agreed upon terms. We're keeping those policemen according to when the city grows, so should our police force grow, that we're maintaining those roads, and that we're doing those quality of life things that you've heard our city really is passionate about, because Final Friday is a selling point. City Arts is amazing. Our pools, you know, I'm a College Hill pool girl, and the pools took a real big hit. And I didn't even realize until speaking with our mayor a couple weeks ago that the new plan was totally off the wall from what I understood it to be. We don't need $4.2 million new pools. Please just maintain the good, solid pool stock we've got. In my opinion, I want government to be taking care of our needs, taking care of citizens that need roads that aren't going to break their cars, that need public transit that is going to help get them to work when their car busts or they can't afford that car. To do those non-sexy, helping the people that need help job. And I know that's what you want too, that's why you're here serving. But when we build beautiful, amazing libraries, which we did, and it is gorgeous, my kids love it, but I don't know that we would have spent that money as a city if we were talking about then taking away branch libraries or city arts, or, you know, if we had been faced with that decision, I don't think that's where we would have been. I'm just asking, when we're looking at really fun, sexy projects, think twice, because we just want good, boring governance. And that's what I just ask you to take into consideration, and to, as far as monies, that's always an issue. We've got sales tax issues where our sales tax goes to the county, and then we don't get our fair share as a city. That's something that's going to take a lot of hard work to dig in and figure out with the state, with the legislature, with all that stuff. We're offsetting our property taxes with our sales tax. Is that the right call? That's big dig in stuff. And I know you all are aware of that, and not everybody is. That's the hard work that your positions call for, and I just ask you please to stay the course and to do that work, and help make the city the great one that it is. It's a great place to live. Thank you very much.
Christopher Parrish, 311 South Exposition. I was wanting to address the slide that you mentioned. Does that slide show $1 million per year, or is that just $1 million total? $1 million per year? $1 million per year. Okay. We're spending $3 million to totally level Nofsker Park and rebuild it from the ground up. That's money that maybe $1 million of it could have been spent to fix the park up, and $2 million could have been freed up for all these things that everybody's fighting for. Just something to think about with future budgeting.
Mayor Longwell, Vice Mayor Fry, and council members. I'm Arch Macias, president of Historic Wichita Cowtown, Inc. And I just want to mention, well, of course, for the audience, the Historical Wichita Cowtown, Inc. is a nonprofit organization that partners with the city to maintain the operations of Cowtown. The Cowtown, the nonprofit group maintains the art collections, whereas the city, of course, maintains the operation, the buildings, and the maintenance.
And we do recognize that there's been no change in the 2019. We do appreciate that, but it's the long-term ideas of what will happen with the operation of Cowtown that has us concerned. Cowtown itself is a very unique museum. There's over 10,000 artifacts in the collection. There's historical buildings. There's reenactors, gunfighters, and the many, many volunteers that operate Cowtown. And it's those reenactors and gunfighters and volunteers that are really the lifeblood of Cowtown. The Cowtown's financial history is probably about as colorful as its chronological history. The last 7 years, I've looked at the last 7 years worth of our tax return to 990s, and we average about excess of maybe $5,000 a year. Some good years, some not so good years over that time period. It's been talked about that with that change of operations and the board being more responsible for the operations and the revenues and the expenses, that I've heard anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 deficit, that would be transferred to the board to find ways to make that up. That's a tall task, and the number could even be higher than that. So that has our concern, is the ability to go from 5,000 to 200,000 or 300,000 per year over a long period of time is an extremely daunting task. However, we recognize that we do have 1 year to develop some kind of a plan. Maybe it's some kind of transition. Maybe all of the complete operations don't get transferred to Cowtown. I don't have any ideas. We're certainly completely open-minded about how we can develop some plan. We're certainly willing to sit with any of the staff members of the city to work with some kind of a plan for the long-term operations of Cowtown. The pie charts that we've seen, both revenues and expenses, are basically just that, looked at pie charts. And I know quite often we think of those as this is it, and it's just a matter of reallocating the pie, cut a piece here and add a piece over there. Maybe if we can find a way to make that pie bigger, incrementally bigger for all operations, not just Cowtown, all of the cultural arts, museums, golf courses, pools can be properly maintained and enhanced. So it really, I think, boils down to what is the city's commitment to the cultural life of Wichita, which was bringing so many people wanting to come here and stay here. But that's what we need to do, is get them to stay here. And we think Cowtown is one of those that can add to that positive culture of life. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicole Connard. I live at 6100 North Fairfield Road. Thank you for the time that you're giving us today. I appreciate that. I don't like balancing my own budget, so I understand that doing this is not something anybody wants to do, and you guys have sat down and done it. But like many of the citizens of Wichita who are registered voters, we're here because we're concerned. When Wichita grew up, it always wanted to be a big city, and we are the biggest city in Kansas. We're proud of our town. What has happened in the past decade, how the city has cleaned itself up, the new look, it's amazing. Everybody talks about how beautiful Wichita is. And then we hear that we're going to start losing money to our arts, to our parks, to our museums. That's our culture. That's what makes us civilized. That's what makes us a great town. I know we need the money elsewhere, but surely we can find some way. I'm a volunteer at Old Cowtown Museum, and we are drastically hit consistently by budget cuts. Now, I don't know the numbers because I'm a volunteer, but I know how it affects our museum. Why is Cowtown Museum important to the city of Wichita? We are one of the prime guardians of our city's history. Do we want to lose our history? Do we want to lose those names that are written on the streets where we own their belongings and their buildings? If this budget cut goes through, and yeah, it doesn't happen until 2020, that's way off in the future, we'll go from 7 employees at Cowtown to 1, unless we can figure out what to do. How does one person run 23 acres and guard Wichita's history? How do we perform for the field trippers, thousands of field trippers who come from all over? Clear out in western Kansas, they come in to see Cowtown. How do we provide the entertainment for the people who come from around the world with one person, without a curator? How does a museum survive? Did you know that Cowtown is the largest living history museum west of the Mississippi, and that we provide entertainment around the world? And if you check our numbers, in the past 6 years, our earned income, our memberships, and our visitors have improved every single year. We're trying out there. We are the hearts of Wichita when we're volunteering. There is no stronger heart anywhere than a volunteer, and we're asking you, please don't kill our history. Of all the museums in America, only 4% are accredited by the National Museums of America. Wichita, be proud. Cowtown is one of that 4%. If we lose our staff, we lose our accreditation. When we lose our accreditation, we lose the chance as a nonprofit organization to get sponsorships because we're no longer an accredited museum. Please, Wichita, think about that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to come before you and state my concerns and my hopefully good ideas. My name is Vicki Little. I was born in Wichita 65 years ago, and I've lived here my whole life. I am a golfer. I am the treasurer of the Business Women's Golf League. We currently play at Clapp. Do you know Clapp first became a golf course in 1930? And the city of Wichita sued in 1954, went through 18 months of litigation to acquire the golf course as part of eminent domain so that they could have a beautiful municipal golf course. There's a history with Clapp, and I know that when you're talking about income and expenditures, you don't always look at sometimes the quality of life and the quality that Clapp Golf Course brings to the southeast quadrant of the city. Not only to the neighborhood associations, to the golfers, to the junior golfers we've heard several times today that have learned to play there. I learned to play there a long time ago. The first tee program that is the McDonald Golf Course is a beautiful growing ground for new golfers, and it's just getting off the ground. Clapp would be the perfect golf course, being shorter. It would be the greatest golf course in the city for the junior golfers to go to and to continue to spend money and learn the game and golf, with their friends. I know that there's part of a master plan that's going to be developed, and by the way, I thank you for extending the life of Clapp for one more year. That's very much appreciated. But maybe some of us golfers could be part of helping to develop that master plan, and I would urge you, whoever is responsible for the master plan, I assume it would be maybe the city manager, can we look at one possibility being, what would it take to keep Clapp open as a golf course before we start to say, oh, let's keep it as a green space or some other economic development with it? I think that would be a benefit for everybody in Wichita, especially those in the southeast quadrant, especially those of the homeowners association around Clapp. So please try to address keeping Clapp open in your master plan if it's at all possible. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Shauna Miller. I live at 1423 West Murdoch, and I'm a proud member of District 6. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you briefly. I'm glad that you agree with over 400 petitioner signers that we support the library branches remaining open for Evergreen and for Linwood. Wichita wants libraries. Wichita wants the services that are available and even the services that are innovative and possible that are yet to come. This seems like an opportunity to get out of complacency. We expect that our libraries are going to be there, and when the idea was that they might not be anymore, I think that that shook a few of us up out of our complacency to think, what do we need to do that's going to be different? What do we need to do that's going to be innovative and exciting for our libraries? We're in love with the Advanced Learning Library, and now we need advanced innovation for our branches. And so thinking for the future about how to create community, how to create connection and creation, how do we make those spaces more than just repositories for books? They're more than that. They aren't just placeholders for a title on a shelf. How do we create opportunities where there could be childcare centers, connection to aging populations, the continued bridges of technological division that exist within our communities so that they are places that support justice, equality, connection, and community for Wichita. Those are things that are super important to all of us. I've lived here for 28 years. I came here to be a college freshman at Wichita State. I got 2 degrees here. I've raised my son. These are things that you want in your citizens. And I want to continue to stay in Wichita, and I want Wichita to be the place that grows library, that grows art, that grows connection, that grows community. So thank you very much.
Richard Brown, 1821 Greenwood. I'm an advocate for the branch library system. And I want to thank you folks and especially Mr. Layton for proposing closing Linwood Park, which is so contentious that by the time we learned that it had been taken off the table, our petition was approaching 300 signatures just in a matter of a couple of days. The American Library Association sent me an email comparing 9 cities with almost the same population as Wichita. Cleveland has 27 branch libraries. Wichita is tied for last place in that nine city ensemble, has 6 branch libraries, and we were proposing to eliminate those. And I made a comment to the television interviews that can't think of his name. The fellow who spent his entire life building branch libraries escapes me. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, we were addressed by a member of this council who claimed that Linwood Library should be eliminated, that it had no facilities, that it had no computers, that it was simply a room full of books. Now, I cannot, in my mind, accept any contention that that councilman was generating that comment by himself. He was given false information. I used Linwood Library virtually daily. There are 7 computers. It has Wi-Fi. They have served 104,000 Wichitans as of the end of last month. And I have some brochures from the library system that I would like for you to visit. And I would like to ask for the source of that absolutely erroneous information about Linwood Library. No council, no governing body can function properly without good information. And I racked my brain. I can't think of any person or any organization who would gain from eliminating Linwood Library. So we need to rethink our values and what we support and what we encourage. The downtown library I haven't visited yet. I understand the parking is already inadequate. Hypothetically, if all of the branch libraries are closed and all of the patrons of the branch library are forced to go downtown, they'll have no place to park. And there will be additional traffic congestion downtown. And I would bet that air quality would suffer too because of all the vehicular traffic to get to the downtown library. I think neighborhood libraries are essential. Thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Richard, thanks for coming. You know that it was me that was talking to you at that meeting. I want to clarify, the point of my comments was not that there are no books or there were just books, that there needed to be more books, there needed to be more resources because there were not enough, and there need to be more computers, and I think that we can enhance the services over there at Linwood. So that was my point. I apologize if I did not get my point across to your group efficiently, but I don't at all think that the Linwood branch should be eliminated but enhanced. So I apologize if I left any other impression.
Well, I would urge each of you to visit Linwood Library. It's a model for what we could have in other locations in the city. And it serves a vital purpose, and it serves that purpose effectively. The staff is qualified, they're accommodating. There are children's programs that are given in that library monthly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. We do appreciate the time to be able to come here and speak before you regarding the budget under your consideration. And I join with others in saying we don't envy your position, but hopefully we can provide enough information to assist you in making these hard choices. My name is Jerry Sherwood. I live at 1944 George Washington Boulevard. I am a president of the Air Capital Disc Golf Club, and I am here as a representative of that club of about 150 members in the organization, an organization that has been in Wichita for about almost 30 years now. And although the ACDGC membership is but a small percentage of the number of disc golfers in Wichita and the surrounding communities, we believe that you can be assured that what I have to say to you today is supported by the countless others who have benefited from our community activity over the last 30 years. The issues that concern us do regard how the proposed budget may impact the future of Clapp Memorial Park. If there's one thing that all disc golfers have in common, aside from our love of the sport, it is that we have a very high regard for public spaces, public green spaces, parks, be they local, national, state. We place a high value on ready access to outdoor recreation areas and entertainment of all types. And we feel it is important that these amenities be available to all citizens, regardless of their income level, education level, and ages even. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy the aesthetic and potential athletic opportunities that only public green spaces can provide within a city. That's why when speaking to the park board just last month, I voiced the Air Capital Disc Golf Club's support for drawing up a master plan for the 90-some acres of scenic parkland that are now occupied by Clapp Golf Course. We want to support that plan so it can be preserved as a public park if the course is closed, which we do not necessarily propose that it be closed, but if that's what happens, we would like to ensure that this area is preserved as a public park. In addition to our general respect for public spaces, preserving public green spaces, the ACDGC has specific plans that closing of Clapp Golf Course may affect. Plans that will benefit not only our club, but we feel the city of Wichita. So let me explain a little bit of the background and specifically what those plans are. For the past 30 years, the ACDGC has partnered with Wichita Parks and Recreation to install, maintain, and improve the disc golf courses at Herman Hill and Oak North Riverside through our financing and volunteer work. We've also had similar arrangements with the city of Colwich, and the city of Derby. 5 years ago, we were able to begin a push here in Wichita to increase the number of courses and expand and upgrade equipment in existing courses in Wichita, as well as in surrounding communities, including Park City, Hayesville, and recently in Colwich as well, and working towards improvements in Derby. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the professional staff and the crews of Wichita Parks and Recreation, who under the direction of Mr. Hauptman have supported us in this endeavor and made it possible last year for the Air Capital Disc Golf Club, Visit Wichita, and the City of Wichita to submit a joint proposal to the Professional Disc Golf Association to host their 2019 PDGA Professional World Championships. This was only possible because of the work done in 2017 to upgrade the disc golf courses at Oak and North Riverside, to bring that up to professional championship standards, to install a new disc golf course at Cessna West Park with designs that allow for the expansion of that into configurations to accommodate professional championship level competition, and the approval of plans to install a professional level pay-for-play disc golf course running in conjunction with the traditional course at Clapp Memorial. Although we narrowly lost that bid, our proposal was well received by the PDGA. We were encouraged by PDGA officials to continue to submit proposals for 2020 and beyond for their major events. And with that in mind, we have continued our work with plans for Clapp Memorial and the expansion at Cessna. They were all set in motion and have been moving along. Work at Cessna being completed in time for our 30th annual or 29th annual.
Try and wrap up your remarks.
I will.
20 seconds.
I'll get right to my point. 5 seconds?
20 seconds.
20 seconds. I know I'll give you some history here, but I want to make sure you understand what our investment in this city has been, what our goals are. Make it perfectly clear then what we have moved towards and what we are going towards is the installation of this course, which is going to be taking place this week at Clapp Memorial. It is an integral part of the proposal we expect to present in the future for being able to bring major professional disc golf tournaments into Wichita, and that will benefit everyone. A course of that caliber is not only good for that, but we also believe that it will serve as a central point for maintaining the green space there, should that be part of the plan if the course is closed.
Thank you.
And we'd like to be able to make sure that this course is not, and that property is not sold for development. Thank you. Appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Bill Morton, 67207. First of all, thank you, Mayor and City Council, for keeping Clapp over in our beloved Clapp Park for another year. Perhaps the mayor, like the rest of us, at the private meetings and conversations and the neighborhood associations to lengthy meetings at City Hall, the citizens are proud of their heritage park and wish it to stay intact as a fully operational golf course. And not all of these people are golfers. It's a healthy mix of citizens who appreciate the fact that being a golf course provides tremendous and tangible value and strength to the southeast area that a park would not. Drive by Cessna or Linwood Park and notice you don't see the daily activity of 60 people coming and going. District 3 and the Southeast Corridor in general cannot manage any more losses. Already, Southeast High School and the Colvin Learning Center have disappeared, and both Boston and Linwood Pool are on the chopping block. Our district just cannot afford to lose anything else. The course itself is a beautiful 90-year-old gem. It's also unique in that it's walkable, plays fast, and it's well suited for all abilities and ages, particularly those learning the game. And with the First Tee program starting up, along with our long-standing junior golf program, the number of youth learning and playing the game is predicted to very soon be in the thousands. From the new learning center going up, LW Clapp is the perfect place to transition to for playing. Its role as the beginner course will be bigger than ever. The value of our golf park cannot be based simply on numbers alone. Numbers cannot tell the whole story or depict the whole value of this memorial course to our community and our city. Maybe the problem is we've been seeing and treating this as a problem, when in fact it's a challenge. We can run from a problem by closing it, or we can stand up to the challenge and see this as a golden opportunity to find a way for a change and do something truly positive for a city that's in decline. It will take strong leadership, the kind willing to dig their heels in, reverse the closure fever, and get us going forward again. Perhaps that will begin today. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Cleary, and I'm at 409 South Fountain, so District 1, but my concern addresses all of your districts. The current strategic adjustment that was talked about with the fire department, currently it's affecting my home and my family. So the current strategic adjustment that takes place currently is that a squad, the smaller fire truck, is off almost daily from the area that serves my home, my children's daycare, my home parish, and my community. We moved to College Hill for multiple reasons. My grandfather came to Wichita to play football at WSU, bringing along with him his parents. Today, as my children are the 5th generation in our parish and that community, I pray that their safety does in fact remain your top priority, as well as the top priority for everyone living in every one of your districts. They cannot continue to do more with less. When we talk about the positive culture of life, we strive to increase not only people to call this home, but visitation and tourism. How will that strategic adjustment affect all of their safety? An ISO 1 rating means nothing if we cannot staff the pieces of equipment, pieces of fire equipment that save property and lives daily. I've asked to see what financial impacts would be seen by these strategic adjustments, yet I'm told it is not based on a financial loss or gain. I keep hearing pilot project, yet I see nothing. Before deciding on a final budget for 2019, I ask the citizens are informed of exactly what a strategic adjustment means. I thank you all for your service and time. Budget talks are never easy, and I know that every one of you wants what everybody here wants what they're passionate about. I'm passionate about the safety of those I love, as public servants behind me, my family, and my community. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Elaine Kinder, and I live at 2045 South Erie, and I'm near the Linwood in that whole same area. And I'm also very concerned about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago when we learned that you were thinking about closing the Linwood Library. A bunch of us were very, very concerned and started up some petitions, and we're collecting signatures on those petitions to keep the library open for less than 1 day, and we got more than 300 signatures for the petition, and I've been asked to give what we got to y'all. We stopped because we heard that you were reconsidering and that the libraries are essential. I want to really encourage you in that. The neighborhood, it's a lovely, beautiful library you've got downtown, that's fine. But the neighborhood libraries, I think, are much more important because it makes more accessible to the kids and the older people who live in those areas. And I'm in the library constantly because I read a lot. And there was one afternoon when all this was starting to come down, I was just curious. And I sat in there for about 30 minutes, and I just counted the people coming through that library, Linwood Library. And in that 30 minutes, there were over 50 people who came through doing business in that library. That's not counting the people already there. That's not counting all the kids that came through, because they have a lot of really good kid programs over there that are really helping those children learn how to learn, for heaven's sake. And It also didn't count the people on the computers. It just counted the people coming through the door to continue checking in books, checking out books, and doing all the other stuff that they were doing. And so I really think it's important to keep these neighborhood libraries. It's a beautiful big old library you've got downtown now, but I think there would have been a lot less donations for it if people had understood that if you're building that, then you're going to close some of the neighborhood libraries, because it's important to keep those libraries open. Thank you. If you don't have the libraries open, those kids come in there all the time and they're learning stuff. The adults that don't have transportation come in because it's accessible, much more accessible to us in that area than the big new one downtown. That's a nice one, but we need accessibility to our libraries here. We do thank you. Hope that, and we understood, if we understood from the discussions, that it's going to be kept, the Linwood Library is going to be kept open for at least a couple of years. We are hoping that you will continue to understand that we need community neighborhood libraries. I think they're probably needed more than one big central library. That's my own personal opinion. But I would like to see that. A lot of us, since you've said that it would be okay through a little couple of years longer, we're hoping that you will continue, because we want to continue enjoying this library for years and years to come. And those petitions, I was asked to give them to you, so I will. And thank you very much.
You can give them to the clerk.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity. I must say I have a new appreciation for what you folks do on a Tuesday. I'm here to talk about Clapp Golf Course. I want to say that some of the comments that have been made earlier, I'm not going to be redundant into the fact of how it helps our city, how it promotes our city, how it gives people who are looking to come to Wichita something to look at or be promoted for our city. I think, and I really want to thank the council for hopefully approving the extension, the one-year extension for Clapp. But I must say, I look at it more like a lifeline. I think now the opportunity and the challenge is how to make the golfing in Wichita, the golf division, better, more profitable, so that we don't go through this anymore. I think that we really need to look at how we can increase the number of rounds played, the revenue, and it's really the revenue that counts. And I would suggest that one thing would be look at each golf course. A week ago Sunday, I played Clapp Golf Course. I spent $38.50. Cart, round of golf. Why? First of all, I'm a senior and I have an annual pass, senior pass. But because I played before noon on a Sunday, I paid what everybody else was. Well, I'm sorry, I'm the same age on Sunday morning as I am any other time. But why should I spend within $2 of the same amount of money to play Clapp Golf Course as I would Auburn Hills? Why would I not spend $30 at Clapp and $40 at Auburn Hills? They're supposedly the jewel. They're the nicer course. They're a longer course, etc. Adjust our prices. Work on fundraisers. There are many things that we can do. Improve our concessions. This last week, I was in St. Louis, Missouri. And fortunately, we drove, took my golf clubs, and I played a course called Forest Park Golf Course. It's by the zoo. It's a public course, extremely similar to Clapp. Only it is a 27-hole facility. They have 3 9-hole courses, and you play any given 2. But they're 3,200 yards in length, about what clap is, and I guarantee just as tight as clap is. They're doing 77,000 rounds of golf a year. They don't have any better weather than we do. They don't, but it's the fact that they were efficient, they had good concessions, they had good management of the course to where the carts were ready, et cetera, and they have just as much competition per course as we do here. But why? Because they tried. I think that giving us the year extension or until the master plan is done, I think is wonderful, but I think we really needed to challenge our golf division to come up with ways to become more profitable. That, you know, it's becoming extremely obvious that the solution to the problems that come about, and it's been this way over the last several years, is we'll cut back on service, we'll cut back on quality, but we'll charge a little more money. How's that worked out? It hasn't. You know, it's always been said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. If you look at our golf division over the last few years, that's the definition. It's a textbook example. So what I'm trying to say, Mr. Mayor, is you know, let's somehow our golf division needs to be challenged to raise the bar, to raise the tide for all of our golf courses.
Thank you.
And hopefully we don't do this anymore. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tim Riggs. I live at 148 North Forest View Court. I'm here on behalf of IAAF Local 135, the Wichita Firefighters Union. And I've got a letter to read here. Mayor Longwell and members of the Wichita City Council, as you are all well aware, next year's budget calls for significant cuts to the Wichita Fire Department by eliminating full staffing for Engine 6 and consequently 10 firefighter positions. We are asking you to carefully consider the consequences of this decision and reverse action by restoring Engine 6 and those 10 firefighter positions back into the budget. Our city continues to grow, and when we look around, we see new businesses being built, apartment complexes, and new housing divisions, with many new homes being erected in all quadrants of Wichita. Many current structures throughout the city are being revitalized for both residential and commercial development. With this continued and expansive growth, why are we cutting vital city services? Right now, at current staffing and equipment deployment levels, the Wichita Fire Department is challenged to provide adequate and timely protection to significant areas of Wichita. Cutting Engine 6 and reducing our staffing numbers by 10 positions will only exacerbate this situation. Don't we owe it to our citizens to provide adequate and timely service in their time of need? There has been much discussion about our service to the community and the stress that many of our calls create on the system. We are the ones who are on the street and know all too well the reality of non-emergent calls and the frustrations for all involved. But we also see firsthand that many of these non-emergent calls end up being truly emergent and sometimes critical in their nature. The city manager and fire administration, along with other agencies, have attempted to address the situation with a community response pilot program. If this is a pilot program and there is no definitive plan of action yet as to why reduce a known commodity in the Wichita Fire Department by cutting positions and trucks from service? The proposed employees are going to be one-dimensional in their scope of practice, while your commissioned fire personnel have the ability to mitigate a full range of incidents that face them each and every day. What services will these employees provide for the city of Wichita and our citizens that is not currently being provided by your firefighters? We understand and respect the daunting task that a budget process can entail, and we certainly respect the people trying to make ends meet for our city and the citizens. But we also know the challenges of protecting a growing community like Wichita, and cutting services at this time can have disastrous consequences. We also know that your firefighters continually provide this community with invaluable service on a daily basis, and ask that you reconsider the proposed budget cuts for next year. Respectfully, Matt Schulte, IWF 135. He was not able to be here today. He had an out-of-town commitment, so I was reading on his behalf.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Brad Vance, and to qualify, I am from Colwich. I am a retired captain from the Wichita Fire Department, and also I am a firefighter from Colwich. I am a stakeholder, I feel like, because of the mutual aid commitments that Wichita and the city of Colwich have with one another. Plus, I feel like that I am a representative for all of the Wichita's bravest that are out here. So that's why I'm here to speak as a subject matter representative. So the reason that I'd like to speak before the City Council, basically reiterating a lot of what Mr. Riggs had to say this morning, and that is that if the city, whether or not this pilot program is going to be put in place, or if it's going to be a full implementation of the optimized deployment program, I think that the city needs to reconsider what they are trying to accomplish here. Taking 11 squads off track and basically staffing the engines with, the 4th firefighter, putting a truck company on, which we appreciate putting the 5th truck company on, and staffing the hazmat and heavy rescue 4, that is appreciated by the firefighters. But taking 11 squads off, that is taking 11 fire apparatus off the streets. Now, granted, they're going to have quick response vehicles to respond on lower acuity calls. But on the higher priority medical calls, fire engines are still going to have to respond on those. Plus, you're going to have extra engines that respond on fire calls. So, that is going to put a strain on resources. The fact that you're going to have engines still responding on medical calls, on some medical calls, plus extra engines responding to the fire calls. It's going to put a strain on resources if you have more than one fire plus the medical responses. So I think that it's going to be a hazard to the firefighters, and it's going to be a hazard to the public. It's going to put a strain on. Plus, as I said, as a stakeholder, what can we expect to the mutual aid holders throughout the county, and what right now with what's going on between the city and the county right now, as far as their mutual aid problems that's going on with one another. What can the firefighters expect as far as mutual aid from the city, or from the county rather? Because they're getting very little assistance right now on mutual aid. So until they can get their problems worked out with mutual aid and automatic aid from the county, I feel like it's a real threat to the firefighters and the citizens of the city of Wichita. So I think that they need to rethink what's going on and reconsider the optimized deployment program until they can rethink all the consequences. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Bishop. I live at 8518 East Long Lake Street in southeast Wichita. As you know, I'm also a state representative representing District 88, which is in southeast Wichita. So I think a lot of that explains to you, at least in part, why I'm here today. I'd like to talk to you about libraries, the golf course, arts center, and swimming pools, and lastly, the city's legislative program. One of the things about the branch libraries is that they serve as community and cultural centers, and many folks have already emphasized the accessibility piece of that. Where the Arts Center is concerned, I might tell you that my husband and I have purchased probably dozens of classes from the Arts Center to a very good effect. We have discovered that it is a gift that we can give our grandchildren that they really enjoy because it carries an experience along with it. I've even paid for the opportunity to take my 2 granddaughters to a class in digital photography, which of course they soaked up and I'm still struggling with. But we enjoyed ourselves very much. Swimming pools. I've been before you before talking about the McAdams pool and my desire, and I urge you to replace the pool at McAdams Park and also to consider the need for other neighborhoods for neighborhood pools. I believe that that's a tremendous loss to the quality of life in this community, the fact that we have so many neighborhood pools, as someone put it, on the chopping block. I'm a strong proponent for swimming lessons. When my sons were small, I didn't ask them if they wanted to take swimming lessons. I said, we're supposed to be at the pool at 9 o'clock for your swimming lessons, get into your trucks. I think today we seem to be encouraging youngsters to think that water is something that you splash in and have fun with, but the serious part of actually learning how to swim gets bypassed because that's not quite as much fun, but it's a serious matter. Swim lessons save lives, and every child in this community should have the opportunity for taking swimming lessons. Lastly, where the golf course is concerned, once again, the southeast part of the city has taken too many blocks to the chin over the last few years, and it is beginning to be overwhelming. And I think you're going to have a revolt on your hands if this isn't addressed completely. However, I would like to say that I think that you have all exhibited a willingness to listen to citizens and find solutions and work with the citizens that are so concerned about these issues. Lastly, as a state representative, I respect the work that you do as city council members. I have great respect for your duties and for your responsibilities. And I do believe, I will be perfectly frank, that municipalities and counties and local government has been getting the fuzzy end of the lollipop from the state legislature for some years. And I would be most happy to work with the city on, frankly, the end of this thing that involves sustainability, because that involves revenues. And I don't believe that we want to overcome some sort of balance between the three-legged stool of revenues that the state legislature is responsible for, but I do believe there are certain things that can be done. Just as one example, I understand that even though I believe we voted on it positively in the House, the provision for allowing increases in employee benefits to not be under the tax lid was not finally passed. I think that's one thing that we could, just to mention one thing that we could discuss. I would be happy to discuss those things with you further. I do encourage you to consider the overall amenities that everyone today has brought before you. I think they're important. It's how we decide as an entire community what kind of community we want to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emily Doffing. I live at 2514 South Minnesota. And first I want to thank the city for this opportunity to speak. I know that you've heard a lot of concern about the libraries closing, and I just want to add some more input on the, retaining Wichita Public Libraries. I don't want its benefits to go understated today. It gives resources to the public in tradition to President Roosevelt, resources that can encourage and help citizens to connect, educate, and seek employment. If it is removed, we will see the same results from other cities who have removed libraries. If we allocate libraries to the more wealthy side of town, it will defeat the library's missions to enrich our culture, and it will segregate social classes. Its school districts will suffer without geographical libraries to provide accessible programs, tutoring, internet, books, and more resources. And as a personal anecdote, I would not be in college, a tutor, and an election clerk without these libraries. Countless more anecdotes can be given in our community, and we want to retain and invest in our libraries. Thank you for your time and your services. Have a good day.
My name is Charles Wilkinson. I live on the south side. I have for 30, 40 years. I suppose I'm here to talk about Linwood Library, if that's what you want to choose to call it, because we don't think of it as a library. You just met my niece. Her name's Emily Doffing. Grew up on the south side. I suppose District 3, I'm not certain. Poverty. She calls the Linwood Library her happy place. I call it her safe place. All the years her family didn't have a car, many years. It was a place she could walk. Of course, we're worried on the way down there, is she gonna make it? No, she could walk. And once she got there, she had a computer. Forget the books, she had a computer, and it was safe. And there were people there that cared about her and knew her and saw her every day. She studied, she did her homework. She got away from her situation at home and had her a place to go. And looking back, I am so thankful. You're talking about spending money, budget cuts, this and that. Your money, our money, I don't know whose money, whatever. Good to know what you get for your money. That's what you get. Little girl grew up in poverty. Today she's KU, honor roll, 18, 19 years old, started when she's 17 at KU. She'll correct me on the age later. But I'm just telling you, it's a fantastic story. And you're thinking, well, you know, I go down there to Linwood. Yeah, it's a crappy little library. It's just a few books. No, start looking around. It's something. It is something. It's something. It was all she had. It's the difference between maybe another crime statistic and pre-med KU honor roll. Right there, right there. You just saw it. I guess that's my case point. We need Linwood Library. Evergreen, same thing. I will have no doubts about the other community libraries. Thank you.
Sybil, thank you. You've already spoken
on the
once.
library.
You've already spoken one time.
No, I'm going to speak. My name is Sybil Strong. I'm
Sybil.
at 3000 West Douglas.
Sybil, we allow 5 minutes for.
Have in Delano has caused businesses to go under. American Eagle was a mechanical automobile. It was a mechanic place. He went out of business because of that library.
Okay. Thank you, Sybil.
No, you're not going to get me off because you have to understand. There's been stealing going on down there ever since that library has been there. And these people want their libraries in Linwood, and they should have it. And they want their pools. Give them their pools. Stop sitting here saying they don't have it.
So, Mr. Manager, we need the next speaker.
Safety. The fire people are sitting there risking their money.
We really need people to adhere to the rules, and if we can't have that, Mr. Manager, we need someone to help us police those rules. Would you make sure we have that? Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Dakota Bennett. I am a member of District 3 for my life, actually. I want to clarify, I've been out of town the past couple weeks, and so any new development since the original...
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, sorry. Any changes to the original budget since it was released, I am not up to date with very well, except for what I saw this morning. But even in light of this morning's presentation, I just want to bring up the concern. At the risk of oversimplifying, I have observed in the budget that it mainly is, and there's a lot of good to it, but the biggest focus on it is adding to police and the roads. And those are very important things, but I would say, and this is good for us, we are really doing pretty well in those categories. We have pretty good roads, we have a fairly good police force, everything has issues, there's no such thing as perfect. And my concern is I don't think it is worth cutting libraries, parks, arts, culture, all the things that we're cutting a lot of things really, to add to those two things. In light of the whole situation, I think the money is more worthwhile spent where it's at rather than transferring over to police and roads, because we're doing fairly well there. I also had heard at one point that the police department has, I don't remember how many, I believe it is 12 to 14, somewhere in their vacancies, and they want to add positions. Maybe if we fill those vacancies first would be a better place to start than just adding positions. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Tim McCurdy. I'm from 1813 North Lisa Lane. I'm here basically looking at the capital improvement project, and I'm very encouraged by all the development that's going on in downtown. The West Bank project looks great, all of that. My concern is that as I look at the CIP, I don't see any money set aside in the future for the performing arts or the convention center. And as I look at the convention center and the performing arts center, I'm noticing things that are deteriorating as opposed to improving. And I understand that there's a committee out there looking at what to do with it for the future. But regardless of that, we really need to take care of what we have now. It's an asset, and I spent 20 years with Century 2 in the management, so I understand conventions, I understand the performing arts. And I think really what you're looking at is that Expo Hall is going to be the thing that needs to be completely replaced in order to attract convention business. Century 2 is going to be a key element to remain why that process happens, why we transition from a new Expo Hall or an expanded Expo Hall, whichever it might be. And I think you really have to look at the performing arts and how not continuing Century 2 as a quality facility could damage. If something would happen to Century 2 and we just did away with it, where would the arts groups go for those years? Music theater is just an absolutely blessing to this community. They've got a national reputation. They at one time could boast that an alumni from music theater was on every Broadway stage in New York. The Disney Association obviously thinks a lot of them, or they wouldn't allow music theater to do things like Little Mermaid coming up. And I was really sad when I went down to Century 2 to see the last show and walked around and saw flower beds that were empty. Because you go out on Douglas, and here's been this big project to plant all these flowers and make Douglas look so great. And here's an asset that we just seem to be neglecting. And for the Convention Visitors Bureau, it's really difficult to sell a building that doesn't look like people are taking care of it. And to me, that's just a blatant thing. When flower beds have nothing but wood chips in them, it says something. It says that we're not investing. I had all sorts of things I wanted to say, but I guess that the key thing is you know, when you look at a capital improvement project, it's to maintain, to enhance, and to expand. Well, so the capital improvement project is not, as far as I can tell, it's really tough to go through all this literature, by the way. I just don't see an investment being made to maintain Century 2. And I think that's really what's key. And also one of the key words that I kept seeing as I went through was return on investment. Well, Century 2, let's see if I can find my figure here, like cost $12.6 million to build. I tend to say the community's really got its return on that investment over the years. And I suggest that we maintain it. The new Kauffman Center in Kansas City cost a little over $400 million to build. And it took 5 years. And that has 2 halls in it that are smaller than the Mary Jane Teal Theater and Concert Hall put together. So, you know, it's a small facility. And you know, fortunately for Kansas City, Mrs. Kauffman was a nice lady. She even left them $40 million to operate that facility as an endowment. So if we could only be blessed to find somebody in our community that wanted to come forward and give us that kind of money. But I just really would encourage you to look at the budget or look at the capital improvement projects, see if there isn't some money that could be pulled from other places, and I know that's asking a lot, but there is a lot of money going into the West Bank development, and I'm glad for that. But return on investment, I think Century 2 and the Convention Center both would offer you more of a return on investment. And I'd encourage you to go down to Kennedy Plaza. I was going to read it to you, but you folks have had many people talking to you today. There's a quote there from John F. Kennedy talking about why the Civic Center was built. And I think that's really key, that people go down and look at that and appreciate what Century 2 is and how long it's been here. And I think it can be updated with new lighting, an improved plaza, to be part of that corridor going from Delano into the downtown and into Old Town. So thank you for your time.
Hello, my name's Doug Ballard, 920 Buffalo. And going through the budget process, I'm just pitching my own personal stuff here. This summer, as you can tell, I've been outside quite a bit. And I've got most of this tan at Municipal Pool and on the bike paths. So I ride probably 60 to 100 miles a week on the bike path, and it's fabulous. Been riding for a long, long time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much safer it is than what I used to do when I was younger on West 21st Street. So I appreciate that. But Municipal Pool, my grandson and I, every afternoon, we went swimming almost every day. I worked for the park board from like, I think 63 to 68. As some of you may know, I used to be a swimmer, pretty good at it. I swam masters till I was about 50. And so I know a little bit about the pools, and I will say that what is good about Manissa is really good. It's well run, but there are so many things that could be done to enhance the pool. I would say the first thing that they do wrong, they're closed on Mondays and Saturdays. Really? This is a working class pool, and it's closed on Saturday. It closes at 6 o'clock, right after everybody gets home from work. They don't teach lessons. If you don't teach lessons, I can almost guarantee you that you'll have failure. I honestly, according to me, I would say there's less than 10 kids that go to that pool that can actually swim. And I can't tell you how, I know it's been a big part of my life and it's not a big part of everybody's, but everybody should know how to swim. That soccer team from Thailand that got caught in them caves, one of the things that made that such a big deal and cost millions of dollars is because none of those kids could swim. So I want to encourage you to, I know may not be exactly on the budget, take care of the pool first. I will tell you there's a couple private pools that are in the near area that may not be here 5 years from now, so you want to take that in consideration. Anyway, that's my pitch for Manessa. Thanks.
I'm Donald Worth, zip code 67215. I appreciate you listening to everybody here today because everybody has a stake in what's happening in the city, a quality of life stake. And I think the number crunchers who've been passing budget values to you seem to have forgotten the human impact from these services that are being cut. And I think somehow when services are recommended for a cut, there should be a combination of a public-private task force formed to actually view the operations at these facilities, whether they be libraries, pools, parks, whatever, so that we can come up with something. Now, that said, the service I want to talk about is animal control services in the Wichita Animal Shelter. That is a passion of mine. I network animals daily to try to find fosters and adopters. I do not like seeing animals put to death at the animal shelter because they've been deemed fearful or they fail to pass a test that the Kansas Humane Society can't even validate is a valid test for animals. There are things happening at the shelter that can be improved with adequate monetary funding. Last year, the animal shelter requested a $300,000 increase in budget, which was denied. However, this budget is asking them to reduce $50,000 this year, another $250,000 next year, and $450,000 in 2020. Now, I understand that the thought is maybe this savings can be obtained by having a private entity, possibly a nonprofit rescue-related entity, run the shelter. But there are no plans at this time for having that. I've talked with the rescues, I've talked with the Animal Control Advisory Board. Nobody has been given the opportunity to be even involved in such a discussion. The Animal Control Advisory Board was not even involved in knowing about this particular budget reduction or elimination until I reminded them of this at the last Animal Control Advisory Board meeting. Now, I know some people think the services of Wichita should be totally animal control. Pick them up and do something with them. Well, what are you going to do with these animals? Yes, some animals have to be put down. Some animals have to be euthanized. But when we have a shelter that is running 50 to 75% empty in a lot of cases, and the related facility next door, the Kansas Humane Society, not taking animals, and they themselves are running empty kennels in their back, we've got a problem. So I would like to see the Animal Control Services budget reanalyzed, and I would like to see emphasis put on not taking more money. $50,000 2018, $250,000 eliminated 2019, $450,000 eliminated 2020. And I think that's wrong. Thank you.
Good morning, Catherine Camden. I live in District 1. Thank you for listening to all of us this morning. I am here. I know the budget is not something that's easy to balance. I know we are one of the few cities who are required to do that, and I appreciate the finance department we have a phenomenal finance department. However, I feel this specific budget has overlooked a lot of things. We were all pretty much present at that Chung report findings. I know Mayor Longwell was, I was standing next to him. And they weren't very good results. We paid a lot of money to have a consultation with Chung over the years to report on what we found and how we can grow. And it wasn't a great summary, but we had different things we could do. Number one was invest in the community. One of those three things was invest in the community. And I feel like this budget is completely disregarding that. I feel like it's taking all of the report findings and throwing them out the window, quite frankly. We do have certain things that are essential, a right to everybody in this city. That's safety, and I think police and fire department is really high in that budget. It needs to be high in that budget. And I think if anybody needs more money, it's the fire department. And Chief Snow is always here. Well, she just left, I think. But she's always here, and she's always fighting for that department, and they need it. They need the funds. That is something that we all may use in our life at any time. Every single one of us, whether it's a wreck or if it's illness or a fire in our house, whatever it is, the fire department should not be cut. They're already short-staffed and struggling as it is. So I would like to see if there's any way we can avoid cutting that or refocusing funds to them. I would appreciate that. The police department also needs funding for education. They need de-escalation training. I think they have budget there. I don't think it's maybe being used quite properly. I know they're short-staffed, but at the same time, we are requiring the police department or events such as some of the ones that are coming up later on the schedule, if it gets to them. If there's an event, if there's a chili cook-off or Riverfest or whatnot, we require that they use city police officers off duty. And we pay a lot, the event staff pays a lot of money for that, but what it does is it takes away those police officers from the street. And instead of having all this more money to hire new police officers, like the gentleman said earlier, let's use the ones that we have, and let's not moonlight them out. Plus there's insurance liability issues there, which I think really is an issue, because if a cop is working at Walmart, like Justin Rapp was after he killed, I'm gonna get into that, but there's liabilities there. Who pays for that? If he gets hurt off duty, is a Wichita fire, or is it Wichita police, or City of Wichita responsible for that? So we need to look at that as a separate issue. But funding, there's things that we have to have. We all need safety. So I want the money not to be cut from those areas. And I would like to see more money put into the fire department. As far as the golf course goes, personally, I don't give a crap about that golf course. I'm gonna be real frank, it's losing a lot of money, it's been losing a lot of money. There's a lot of golf courses out there that are better at being run privately, and it's bleeding our budget. And to keep extending it year after year, in my mind, is just a Band-Aid, and it's making a very few people happy. Probably prominent people who have some say because they're prominent, but all these people, all of us who've been fighting for McAdams Pool that we were promised that $4 million budget for, that pretty much taken away from us or keeps getting put back and forth. We're not being listened to. So why are these handful of people being listened to about a golf course that is not providing anything life-saving, like swim lessons or it improves quality of life, but there are other options. And it's just something the City of Wichita has not been good at. We're not like most of the people said, we're not good at it and running them, and it's bleeding our budget. And to ask to have a $2 discount, how is that helping? I think it's counterproductive. If we're already losing money, asking for less in discounts isn't gonna help that. So in my opinion, I understand it's a quality of life thing. Sorry, there's no timer.
You went well over.
Oh, there's no timer. I'm sorry.
It's up over there.
It's not.
It's not been up all day.
All right.
So anyway, so that's my concern as fire department and the pools. My main thing is libraries. Please save the libraries. Those are also like safety. It's a right to education and right to information. So please do not ever, ever cut the libraries. That's my plea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cindy Renard and 1110 Royal Road. Some of you may know me from the Golf Advisory Committee, and I am an advocate for the entire public municipal system in Wichita, not just CLAP, and I am also an advocate for Wichita on the whole. I would like to thank you for extending the life of our libraries in the city arts and CLAP Golf Course. I think what we've heard today is the people of Wichita are quite passionate about community and their neighborhoods and all the things that make our neighborhoods. Wichita is struggling right now. We are in decline, and as we've heard from many people, our neighborhoods and communities are more important than ever, and we need to invest in our communities and hold tight to our amenities. Our libraries, our pools, our art centers, our golf courses, this is what makes community, and this is what will make our city strong and thrive. Now, I won't repeat what all have said about the golf courses and the value it does provide to the city. It's not just for a few golfers. It's for the entire city, and that's why our forefathers did see it as so integral. They took it through the power of eminent domain to acquire it in the 50s. But the main reason CLAP is struggling financially right now is the creek and the water situation. These are the challenges to make it feasible. And with working with stormwater, I think there are ways to utilize the creek to solve the water issue. And as far as being a drain on the Golf Enterprise System, CLAP is not the drain. The Golf Enterprise System was quite stable until Auburn was built, and it took on the debt of Auburn. And we would not be here today discussing the closure of CLAP if it were not for Auburn and its debt. So perhaps we need to revisit the Golf Enterprise Fund and maybe even take Auburn out of the Enterprise Fund and look for other ways to finance it. It is the country club of the city, and maybe it should be financed more as a country club. And another option would perhaps be to forgive that debt of Auburn and put the Golf Enterprise System back on square one. But there are many options to explore before we take a dramatic step such as closure, and there are many people out here willing to take on that task and look at options and see what it would take to keep all of our amenities in place and intact. So I would encourage you, please, to say yes to our city and to hold tight to our amenities that have held our city strong, for that is the fabric of our city and for so many decades. And I thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Going once, twice? We'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've looked at this budget so much, I think I've worn out an eye.
Nice.
Sorry. It's just a corny joke. So that said, treating our public facilities and spaces as prized assets is absolutely necessary and critical for our success. You know, we have to continue to take care of our infrastructure and the quality of our spaces, so I appreciate all the speakers who spoke today. These restored cuts demonstrate cooperation and compromise, I believe, but we will certainly be back next year if we don't take this reprieve to find alternatives and operating models for efficiency and sustainability in all departments. This revised budget allows us the time to do that, and it's our duty to use this opportunity wisely, sooner rather than later. To that end, in the proposed CIP, I simply can't justify money for a 1.5 mile long sidewalk in District 5. So I'd like to shift those dollars to Proct Wetland Park, which I believe will be a greater and more immediate return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilmember Clayco.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, and many of the people that spoke earlier have left, so I hope that they get this. I just want to thank all of the citizens and residents that came out today and engaged in respectful discussion. You could really see the love for Wichita and the people that spoke today and that took time away from your schedules to support our neighborhoods and our city. I just want to reiterate what Vice Mayor Fry said. This budget takes short-term actions, to restore these cuts. And so I just encourage people to stay involved to help us identify long-term solutions, both on the revenue side and the expenditure side, because I think that's we're gonna have to really look at how do we create a long-term plan, a long-term budget, as opposed to, having cuts and then restoring them by moving money around. We can't continue to do that. So stay involved, look at the boards that are represent each of those areas. We have a library board, we have a golf advisory board that Cindy Renard talked about, so stay involved with those boards too. Thank you. Thank you. Other comments, concerns on the budget side of the document or the CIP? I have a couple of comments and then just want to share some concerns and would like to see some adjustments, Mr. Manager. And I hope people understand we're one of the few communities that have not only supported the arts with our words, but we've supported the arts with our action, and one of the few communities in the country that have dedicated mill levy that supports the arts in a wide variety of ways. And we're fortunate to have a fantastic asset of museums and art, and I think we truly want to continue to see that improve, and it's going to take some work. And that's why we do have money in the budget right now to ensure that those things that we truly believe enhance the quality of life for our city continue to operate. And so I do get frustrated when the arts community misleads people and says we haven't put anything in the budget for 2020. We haven't put anything in the budget for, for arts. And that's not true. We continue to support the arts in a wide variety of ways. Now, we're going to continue to look at ways to deliver services more efficiently, and that's what we should do if we're going to be good stewards of your money. And someone asks, well, whose money is it? Let me make it very clear. It's your money. We operate on your money. That's the way government operates. We tax, we bring in revenue, and we provide those services that our citizens want to see. And we will continue to do that, and it's true. Our highest priority is public safety. And so we're expanding the police department this year. What people need to also understand when they see us making supposedly cuts to the fire department, one, we are looking at a pilot project that a couple of council members sat on a committee that had discussions for nearly a year.
Yeah.
That's just simply looking at a more efficient way to deliver services. Here's what the community needs to understand, and I don't know why the word hasn't really gotten out there yet. For the first time in the history of Wichita, Kansas, we have achieved a fire safety rating of 1. There are literally a book that's about a half-inch thick that shares all of the criteria that get you to that rating. Now, our previous fire safety rating was a 3. And that, I think, was maybe the best fire safety rating we had ever had. I know we've never had a 1 until this year. Now, to put that in perspective, they rate 46,000 communities for insurance purposes. We're now one of only 315 communities out of the 46,000 communities they rate for insurance purposes that have achieved that #1 fire safety rating. That fire safety rating of a 1 just begun July 1st of this year. It's something brand new based on our resources that we put into the fire department, our water sources, our personnel, our response times. I mean, it is literally a long, long list of all of the things that they grade you on before they're going to give that rating out. And I think to receive a fire safety rating of a 1 speaks volumes to our concern about keeping this community safe. And to say anything different is terribly misleading. It's hard to achieve a 1 rating. 315 have done it out of 46,000 fire departments that they assessed. With all of that said, I do have some concern, manager. I get it. So none of us are fire experts up here. We rely on staff, our fire chief, our fire administration, our city manager, and those that have the data, you know, the obviously expertise, the knowledge to make recommendations to us. I understand that 6 station/38, which is the dual city county station, I get it based on how many calls they have, their response that we don't need 2 nearly $1 million pieces of equipment in that station. But I do have concern that, one, we're sending the wrong message when we say we're pulling everything out and then the county will run it. I would like to see us keep a squad in that station.
Mr. Mayor, that's reflected in the budget.
Okay, so we do have a squad staying in that station.
That's correct. As we went through the budget process, that was a change I made.
All right. So that was my concern, and then I would hope that if we are able to get a new SAFER grant replaced, that obviously that will help us staff up even additional pieces of equipment, or potentially have roving staff where we don't have to worry about overtime pay. I know we put in the budget, I think next year, 1.5 million in overtime pay for staffing of the fire department for when they're gone on vacations and sickness and a wide variety of things. So I want to make sure that we continue to look at the staffing levels as it pertains to how we're reacting to the amount of money that we're spending in overtime. For those of you, just for public information, we are trying to look at our mutual aid agreement that we have with the county, and so that we can both tweak it. I think that mutual aid agreement was first written, I don't remember the year, 20 years ago maybe. If you need to answer that, put it on speakerphone. I'm kidding. And so we are working on a new mutual aid agreement and see what needs to be tweaked. But I think I heard someone say that we are barely making calls because we're understaffed. I think the report will say that we made nearly 900 calls out into the county with city equipment last year. That's not barely making calls. That's 900 calls that we made out into the county. And so people need to have the right information. We are going to have to figure out a sustainable plan if we want to invest in this city. And that's something that we now have a small reprieve in at this point in time. But we have got to figure out a sustainable plan if we're going to continue to invest. And I hear everyone, we want to do that. I've said quality of life's most critical to us. But we've got to figure out how to sustain that. And that's going to take some work on everyone's part. But I just don't want people to mislead the intent of this body up here, because you've got a group that cares deeply about their community, that there's just too much misinformation that's bouncing around in terms of those quality of life assets, and it's going to take work. But I appreciate everyone's patience, and certainly appreciate the folks that I get the pleasure of working with that want to make this city special. One thing that was misleading, and the Chung report did say this, if you look 3 years ago when they first came to the city, they clearly found that only about 27% of the people at that time considered Wichita a place that they can stay, build a life, and want to be here long-term. The average for Midwest cities is in the 45 to 47% range. It seems like everybody wants to move temporarily, I guess. So flash forward 3 years to recent data, we've moved that needle from 27% to 47%. And I think much of it has to do with this group up here, their intent to make this city a better place. We just redid our agreement a couple of years ago with the mill levy that we dedicate for the arts. I think you don't move from 27 to 47% unless you're doing something right. You don't move your fire safety rating from a 3 to a 1 unless you're doing something right. And so I appreciate all of those that are working hard to figure out how we can build a better city. So, Mr. Manager, when we hear this budget again next week, obviously it'll reflect a few of these changes that you've heard today and continue to move us forward. Councilmember Blueball.
Thank you, Mayor. And just want to give you some of my feedback on the budget. I again think the top of our priority list needs to be police and fire. I think our infrastructure as far as our streets need to be right after that. And you know, we do owe a certain quality of life to our constituents, and I want to ensure that those are managed in a way that we would manage our own businesses. You know, there's nothing wrong with running lean operations. I want them ran just like you would your own businesses. As far as the Vice Mayor's recommendation for $1.5 million, I want to commend him for finding money out there, but I would like to look at throwing that into the general fund rather than allocating that to another park project, because some of my own frustration is I took $1 million and allocated it to Pawnee Prairie Park a year ago, and a third of that money we've spent have been on repairs that have been kicked down the curb, disrepairs that were not taking care of our parks. So I have a problem continuing putting money into new parks when we're not taking care of what we have right now.
Thank you. Any other comments? If there's no other comments, then I would move that we receive and file all of the comments reflected and take the staff recommendations for this budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is that clear enough for you? I mean, it's, all right, motion and second. If no other discussion, cast your vote. Yeah, we do. So we'll have another public hearing next week. Motion passes 7-0, and Vice Mayor reminded me maybe to share with all of you. Next week is still a public hearing. You'll be able to come and share all of your comments again if you like. And we encourage active participation in this community to help us make it a better place. So thank you all. Madam Clerk, next item.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Appointments, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one appointment to make, and that is Miss Erin Bach to the Library Board. ERINBOCK.
Okay. Councilmember Clendon.
I do have one appointment to make today, and I want to appoint Vanessa Christopherson to the Animal Control Advisory Board.
Okay. Any other appointments, comments? I would move that we approve the appointments as mentioned.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. The only comment I want to make, and this is something that got a little bit of attention finally in our local press from this past weekend. There's a annual tournament that takes place in this city called MAYB. It's a youth basketball tournament, and they bring in thousands and thousands of visitors. I think it's the one event that may nearly sell every hotel room in this city. They had to play in venues as far away as Augusta, Newton, Goddard, to find enough gym space, Mays. And again, it's a great opportunity to showcase our city. I know that we take a lot of pride when we have those signature events like the NCAA coming here, but there were thousands of visitors in our city this last weekend that thoroughly enjoyed our city and brought in a lot of visitor dollars with it. And I think Wichita showcased itself very, very well. So thank you to all of those folks that made that MAYB a big success this past weekend. We still have an executive session that we need to hold before we can close out today's meeting. I think at this point we'll do it upstairs. And we have actually two different executive sessions. The first one running 15 minutes, the second running 10. And we will run them consecutively. And I move that the City Council recess into executive session for, let's go 30 minutes. Is that, well, we'll go longer than that because we're going to eat. That we come back no earlier than 12:45.
Second.
And let me finish this though, I'm sorry.
I thought you were finished.
I move that the City Council recess into executive session for 45 minutes to review an offer for settlement pursuant to KSA 75-4319 for legal consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privilege in the attorney-client relationship, and it's for pending litigation and legal advice, and that this session is required to protect attorney-client privilege. The other one is very similar. It will be for legal consultation for potential litigation and legal advice. And it is needed also to protect attorney-client privilege and public interest, and we will return to these chambers no earlier than 12:45.
I will second that angrily.
Angrily. We have a motion and a angry second.
Angry.
All right, cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move upstairs.